Hello, Clinical Research Circle. How are you guys doing, guys and gals? We've got exciting CEO exclusive. All right. Azure X became first wave BioPharma. And we have James Saperstein on, the CEO, and he's here to give us updates. He's here to talk. There's been so many big changes. James, thank you for coming on. I mean, where do you want to start? Like, where there's a lot to discuss.
Well, I guess the easy is we have a new name, right? So
Yeah.
as you mentioned before, I felt Azure X was a little confusing. There were about three or four different pronunciations for the company that I took over in 2019, and it's never good when an investor can't pronounce the company name. So I wanted to make it much clearer. And as we acquired the company First Wave Bio, I asked them if I could just take their name as well, and they said they were fine with it.
Okay. Were they publicly traded or
No, they were private, and the story is an interesting one. Hopefully, you find it interesting.
yeah.
It goes back to when I was an undergraduate, and I took organic chemistry in 1980. And one of my classmates was Gary Glick, the founder of First Wave Bio. And Gary has been a very prolific chemist. He's at the University of Michigan. He founded Lycera. He founded IFN. He's had a lot of exits, a lot of very strong exits. He just is starting another company with OrbiMed right now. So ironically, I introduced Gary to his first funders back with Lycera back in 2000, I have to think 2006, 2007. And he's been very successful ever since. And he touches base with me every so often to find out if I can help him with, an out license. And when he showed me the compound that he's working on, First Wave Bio, I said, hey, hold on. We're a gastroenterology company. I'd like to take a look at this myself. And that's really how the conversation got started. And so we licensed in the first two indications back last year. One was for checkpoint colitis, checkpoint inhibitor colitis, which we announced today. We filed the IND for that, and the FDA accepted our IND. And the other was kind of a throw-in for COVID. Niclosamide was tested in the early part of the pandemic with all other types of products that have been around for a long time to see what their activity was against COVID. And remdesivir, for instance, which is the Gilead product that was approved, niclosamide has 40 times the activity against COVID than remdesivir does. So we're not the only game in town with niclosamide. There are three other companies that are looking to develop it for COVID. But Gary developed this proprietary micronized version of niclosamide where rather than having to take a handful of drug, you can take it in two small capsules to treat COVID. But also, we're obviously much more interested in the gastroenterological indications, and we had seen data on ulcerative pancreatitis, which we just announced last week, a phase 2 trial, and they showed us that data privately. We had right of first refusal based on our licensing agreement, and we decided to acquire the whole company. So long answer to a lot of the activity that's been going on.
Let's get to the GI stuff in a little bit, but I just
ask a question?
Yeah,
just curiosity.
Chris, go ahead.
So what do you mean by 40 times the activity for your remdesivir competitor? I already forgot the name. I apologize.
Yeah, remdesivir. So it's the potency, right? So I'll try to draw like a backwards graph. So whether it's antibiotics or antivirals, you've got these levels where you have to have a trough and a crest in order to treat. You have to be above a certain level with a crest of the drug as you hit it with an antibacterial or antiviral. So with niclosamide, it's remdesivir hits a certain level, but it's IV. So it doesn't exist orally. And you reach a very flat line level. Niclosamide orally is 40 times stronger, more potency than remdesivir.
Okay,
So we
thank you.
press much higher on the scale.
Yeah, we'll get to GI right now. We'll spend most of the interview on that, but just to give the social investors some something to chew on. Like, where are we now with this COVID thing? Are we with niclosamide? Have we made any progress since our last interview? I know we discussed it a bit last time.
Yeah, so we're in the middle of the trial. Unfortunately, like anything else, as soon as you see, the pandemic rear its ugly head in Idaho, we put a site in Idaho, and then we just kind of miss the peak because it takes us, as you know, 2 months to get a site up and running.
Yeah.
We have 5 or 6 sites in Florida right now that have been getting some patients in. We expanded the trial to India and to Ukraine. Ukraine is about to have another uptick in their COVID numbers. So I think we're there at the right time. Our first patient just went in 2 days ago in the Ukraine. India has not given us, it's been taking us a while, almost 3 months now. The regulatory authorities have not given us the official go-ahead. So we screened, probably 40, 50 patients, but none of them can get into the trial until they give us the go-ahead on the protocol. So it's a 125-person trial. I'd like to say we're in the middle of it at this point. And we're treating COVID as a virus, but also COVID-related diarrhea we're testing stool samples, et cetera. I can tell you, I have it right down the hallway in my office. I have one of my employees was COVID positive, and she's got a lot of GI issues still, 2 months after the fact. So we know it exists. 50% of the patients who've had COVID have GI-related problems afterwards. Some have this brain fog that you hear about. So we're also looking at this trial for testing long haulers, people who have, we're doing a subgroup analysis on these people who have COVID for a long time. So exciting stuff. If it works, and we're keeping our fingers crossed, we get good results, we might actually have an answer for the long haulers as well.
We work with a PI who's she's doing an investigator-initiated trial, Dr. Sabine Hazen. She's a microbiome researcher, and her theory is that COVID for the long haulers makes permanent changes to the microbiome, and you have to treat that in order to relieve them of the symptoms and of COVID altogether. What are you guys seeing so far? I know the study's halfway through. I don't know if you've analyzed any of the data.
Not yet. We haven't analyzed it. We can't. We have a DSMB, the safety board, who is now. We hit a certain part of the trial, and the DSMB is going to get together at the end of November. That's how these things go. They want to take a couple of months to review all the data, and they're doing that. So we've hit a certain inflection point of the trial where the DSMB will be able to start reviewing data. I can tell you we've not had any safety issues, but then again, niclosamide's been around forever. So we haven't had anybody stop because of safety issues. I think we discussed this last time. I completely agree with your PI. I think there are changes to the microbiome. I really believe the virus hides. That's why we're calling the trial the Reservoir trial. And our drug is non-systemic, so it doesn't get absorbed into the body. It's basically will coat the microbiome and relieve it and take the virus off the microbiome. So in the gastrobiome, actually, in the gastrointestinal tract. Personally, I believe the virus hides in the GI tract, that hides in the lungs, and it hides in the brain, depending on the patient and depending on their DNA makeup.
Wow. Basically, Chris and Monica, what Dr. Hazen's been telling us, they're going about it from different angles. So, okay, so that's to appease you social investors, right? The COVID study, it's underway, halfway through. Enrollment's been tough at times, should get a little easier, possibly, in the short term. So we can move on to talk about the other programs, right? Can we talk about the new one that was just announced today that the FDA just cleared, I guess, for getting started?
Yeah, so that's a checkpoint inhibitor, colitis. A lot of words there. Checkpoint inhibitors are actually drugs that are on television a lot. Keytruda, Opdivo, Yervoy. They're very good oncology products. They're saving a lot of lives, quite frankly. And kudos to the companies that are out there selling them to patients. The problem with these drugs is they do cause a fair amount of diarrhea. In about 35% of the patients, they get diarrhea. And sometimes in about 20% of these patients, the diarrhea gets so severe that the patients have to be hospitalized. And so severe that it turns into colitis, which is an inflammation of the colon. So those patients then have to go on steroids, which further suppresses their immune response. And it's not something we want. So sometimes the patients have to go on drug holiday, which is certainly not what you want with a checkpoint inhibitor. So we're very confident. It's an orphan indication that it will treat the colitis associated and the diarrhea associated with some of these patients. The issue for us is while we have an IND approved, we are a small company. The biotech market has just been very depressed. So while I have enough cash to do these studies, we're kind of prioritizing. We don't want to raise capital right now. So we're prioritizing how we do the study. So we may not start it before the end of the year. We may wait another quarter to get the study started. But we will have another announcement on the study. Stay tuned. And who we're partnering with on the study. Stay tuned for that announcement.
Yeah, I was going to ask you just really quickly. As a CEO of a publicly traded company, there's all this talk of inflation and how that's basically terrible for the tech companies. Historically, I don't know if biotech, it has tech in the name, but I don't know if they respond to inflationary macroeconomic events the same as traditional tech companies, or do you guys transform more into like actual pharmaceutical companies at that point and get more practical about what you're investing in? It's just something I wanted to ask. I never got a chance to ask.
Yeah, I think we suffer from the same problems that any other company suffers from. There are supply chain issues. We're not quite our things are not, our materials are not stuck in Long Beach the way some of these the cars are and the Apple computers. But in terms of supply, our things come in planes. But things are delayed. There's no doubt raw materials are delayed and they're scarce. So the price to develop products is going up.
Okay. Monica, Chris, anything you want to ask?
I don't.
The three.
Monica's on mute.
Oh, Monica, you did such a good job yesterday. With Curative Biotech. That was such a good interview. Thank you for that.
Thank you.
The community loved it.
Wow. Okay, so good morning. Good morning in California. So I was reading about the pipeline and the science behind your company. There are two components that you guys have here in the website. Is the niclosamide? I cannot. Yeah, that one, and the adrulipase. Yeah, that one. Wow, it sounds exactly the same as I said it.
Es igual en inglés y español, es lo mismo.
Oh, we can do a Latinos in clinical research interview right after this.
Español, sin problema.
Oh, wow. Yeah. Argentina?
Sí, perfecto. Good catch.
Yes.
We got to set that up, Monica, for Latinos in clinical research. We have when we do Biotech Month, we have to have James on. He's like first.
Yes.
First.
Yes. So for the adrula, right?
Wow. Adrulipase, that's okay.
That one. The first, that one, it says that is for the pancreatic insufficient in patients with cystic fibrosis and chronic pancreatitis. I would like to know a little bit more about that specific component.
Yes, that's our lead product, the adrulipase. It used to be called MS1819 for some people who are long-term investors. The generic name is now adrulipase, and the lipase is exactly what it is. It's a synthetically grown product made from yeast. So when you're looking at pancreatic insufficiency in some of these patients who cannot absorb their food correctly in cystic fibrosis, but also people who have chronic pancreatitis, like alcoholics, they don't absorb their food. There's three enzymes, amylase, protease, and lipase, that are in the body that help break down foods. Amylase is all over your salivary glands. It's in your saliva, and lipase is in your gut, and so is protease. So for now, I have my little. My wife wonders why I carry this. So this is my little pig that I have on my desk. What we do is we crunch up pig pancreas right now with the lead products, and you grind up the pig pancreas, and you have lipase, protease in there, and they put them in capsules. And that's called Creon, and it sells about $1.4 billion a year. And it's used for insufficiency. And these cystic fibrosis patients take anywhere from 25 to 60 capsules a day of this. Wow. And what we have is a product that's humanized. It's not made for pig pancreas. We grow it from a yeast cell that produces a lipase, and we grow it in these large vats, and it's a humanized version of it that we can take anywhere from 8 to 16 capsules a day. So it's still a lot, but it's a lot less than these kids are taking. And I always tell people say, well, why'd you join this company? Because early on in my career, I worked for Eli Lilly, and we were looking at insulin at the time, human insulin. And doctors, we were growing in vats made from E. coli, DNA and E. coli, and doctors would say, we've used pork insulin for 90 years. It's fine. The patients are doing fine. Why do we need to switch? This was in the early 80s. And we tell them you want a humanized version because it's actually human insulin, and you don't have the same resistance problems. People that were taking pork insulin would take, say, 4 units when they were diagnosed with diabetes. Within a year, they were taking 6. Within 2 years, they were taking 8. And you're taking so much insulin because you have resistance to this. And the same thing happens with Creon. You get resistance, and that's why these kids are taking, they start on 24, 25 capsules a day. In 3 years' time, they're taking 60. And then they start failing. It just doesn't work anymore because they develop resistance to these animal-derived problems. So adrulipase, right now, we've done several studies. We've done 2 phase 2b trials. But what's happening is some patients are absorbing the drug really well, and some it's going literally right through them. So right now we are in a phase where we're testing a new formulation to make sure that the absorption is consistent across. And then we're going to do a small pilot study of about 10 patients once we fix, because we have to fix the formulation.
Wow, that's very interesting. For pancreatitis, there are many conditions related, but there are not much treatments out there. So it's refreshing to hear that you guys are doing research for this.
Thank you. And as you know, pancreatitis is very painful. I'm diabetic, and so I suffer depending on the drugs that they put me on every once in a while, because they want to test different things on me. I get pancreatitis sometimes with certain products, and so I'm a patient as well, and it's very, very painful for me. I can only imagine what these young kids go through. It's a hell of a problem. So I'm happy and proud to be with a company that's looking for a solution for this.
Yeah, nowadays more and more people are suffering from more conditions, GI conditions, and pancreatitis, I think, is a top painful condition. So and in your pipeline, you have also the Crohn's disease, and it's some phase 1 still, right?
It is. So let me explain, for your audience, if you think of the colon as a question mark, it's shaped like a question mark with the small intestine in the middle of the question mark. So right now we have the proctitis trial going, which is kind of the bottom of, near the rectum. It's the bottom of the question mark. And ulcerative colitis, which is one of the indications, is more going around the curve. Crohn's disease really is the whole question mark. It's total inflammation of the bowel. So we're kind of starting in stages. So Crohn's disease, you're right, it's in phase 1. We probably are not going to do a study on this till the end of 2022. As a small company, we can only do so much. So as soon as we finish the proctitis study, we'll have proof of principle because ulcerative proctitis is part of ulcerative colitis. So then we'll go into ulcerative colitis and then finally Crohn's disease. So we're kind of working our way around the question mark that is the colon.
Thank you. Thank you. Very interesting.
Last week, you guys announced first patient dosed in the FW up in patients with ulcerative proctitis and ulcerative proctosigmoiditis.
Yeah, I just say proctitis, Dan, because it's a lot easier to say.
Yeah. So what is what's the goal for this study? Like when are the study timelines that would you expect?
Yeah, so this was the study really that kind of positioned us to purchase all of First Wave Bio because we had right of first refusal. We looked at the data from the first 12 patients, and it looks really good. I mean, it's inflammation, and we have two formulations. We have oral, and we have an enema that we have as well. And most of these patients are used to enema treatments for this proctitis because it's an inflammation around the rectum and the lower part of the colon. So we're now into the second phase of the study. That's what we were announced that you referred to. We expect the study to be completed by the end of next year of 2022. Basically, it competes against these drugs that are a little bit toxic. Our drug is very safe. Again, we've had no safety issues at all, and the efficacy looks pretty darn good right now and really lowers the inflammation. We're comparing it to placebo. So it's looking very good against placebo. And UP, or up as you call it, but UP is a part of colitis, ulcerative colitis. Is a subsection of that disease. And if we're able to get proof of principle, which is what the study is, we're then confident it will work in ulcerative colitis, which quite frankly is a $40 billion market. It's all injectable drugs that are used there. This is an oral agent. I can tell you one of my board members, Greg Oakes, who used to be the head of global business development at Celgene and also ran the UC of the ulcerative colitis business at Amgen. He was really excited for this indication as well.
Mm-hmm. You guys, when you acquired First Wave BioPharma, did you absorb all their employees, or how did that merger work? Or I guess it's a merger.
It's a merger. We did not absorb any of their employees. Their employees have moved on to work with Gary. They keep going from company to company. So they're going to his new company because Gary, more or less, his specialty is oncology. So the only person we retained is Tony Opapari, who's also he's a physician at the University of Michigan. Tony was their CMO and is serving on our scientific advisory board. So we have some continuity with the company.
I see. And then go ahead, Monica.
No, I was going to ask about the two new additions to the scientific advisory board that were just announced a few days ago.
Yeah, so one of the docs we've had on our scientific advisory board for a while, he specializes in EPI or pancreatic disorders. So he's one of our lead investigators, a great guy. He's out of Case Western. And then Tony Opapari, who I just mentioned, who was at the University of Michigan. Tony also is very well regarded in the field of oncology, just a super guy. And then the other person is Rick Marlink. Rick is an old friend of mine, actually. I asked him to be on our scientific advisory for a variety of different reasons. Rick used to run the Harvard AIDS Institute. So he was at Harvard for many years. and that's where I met him many years ago when I worked in HIV. But he knows a lot about the international marketplace, but also has worked with pandemics or epidemics before. We haven't had a big pandemic, but epidemics in HIV, and he's an oncologist as well. So he understands the world of oncology. So checkpoint inhibitor colitis is something he's very familiar with. So he kind of rounds us out. We have people in different specialties on our SAB.
Thank you for asking that, Monica. Yeah. That's actually a really good point.
Yeah, you'll see an announcement coming soon who we're partnering with. For instance, Rick has been instrumental in helping us with these partnerships. I'm actually on his board, the Rutgers Global Health Institute. He runs that. All of the big pharmaceutical companies are on that board. So he has access to all the chief medical officers of every single pharmaceutical company.
I wanted to ask, so all you small cap biotech CEOs, I mean, that's a long tail, right? Do you guys collaborate even if you're not in the same space, or maybe especially if you're not in the same space? Do you guys ever have conferences? Is there a small cap conference for you guys to meet, or do you just go to DIA and Bio like everyone else?
Yeah, well, I'm on the board of Bio, so I'm on the emerging company board. So
it's a great conference.
Yeah, so I helped put the one in Philadelphia together a few years ago.
Help us get a booth for free, man, for Latinos in research.
I can help.
Okay. Sure. Thank you.
Yeah, believe it or not, as an aside, I should say I'm on the diversity panel for the board. I'm the only Latino on the whole board. It's all women and LGBTQ. I'm the only Latino. So when I'm on that board, I don't put James, I put Javier, which is my real name. So in any case, we do talk, we do collaborate. There are a lot of small cap biotech conferences. There's LD Micro, there's the Markham conference, there's the HC Wainwright conference. Unfortunately, all of it's been virtual. So they haven't been effective really in the last couple of years. JP Morgan is coming up. There's the conference that's the sister conference to JP Morgan, which is the Biotech Showcase. And we I don't know what I'm doing this year, because last year I'm not sure it was really worth the money for us. But when it's live, it's a really good conference. The problem is, and Monica, I don't know where you are in California, but in San Francisco, there aren't any restaurants in Union Square that are open anymore. So the conference is virtual again in January, despite people being vaccinated, because the hotels are not able to feed people or house people. So they made it virtual this year, so I'm not sure we're going to participate.
Yeah, no, those virtual conferences have almost zero value. You can get all that information. The value of conferences is networking, not learning about what panel people are speaking at. Everybody knows that stuff. You can Google this stuff, but it's to meet with people. So I wanted to ask, so you guys I'm assuming you're using a CRO for your studies. Are you guys beta testing CROs, or you just sign one deal with a major CRO, or how does that work?
That's a great question, because we're in that mix right now. So with our COVID trial, we're working with PPD, which is a large CRO. With checkpoint inhibitor colitis, we've told PPD about it. They're bidding on it, but we are talking to other CROs as well, because that's a tough study. Yeah, it's purely oncology. We're going to work with some very specific medical centers, we want the right CRO. Right now, with the UP trial, we inherited that trial, right, when we bought the company. So we have a small CRO in Italy that we are transitioning off of, and we're currently bidding that study. The Italian CRO, which is very small, that was used by First Wave, is still working on it. So it's not we're going to shut them down. We're not. We want to get some American sites and more European sites. So we're going to need another CRO to do that. These guys work specifically in Italy.
Shout out to all the Italians, all you main skin fans out there. Chris knows what's up. I was just thinking, you know how the big pharma have like Transcelerate program, where they share data. I think something like that should or needs to be for the small cap biotechs, because it seems like these CROs, especially the big ones, they kind of give the small cap biotechs like the short end of the stick. I've talked to a few CEOs. I'm not putting you on the spot here, but I've talked to a few CEOs of these small cap biotechs, and they all say the same thing. So it would make sense for you guys to like build some kind of something like Transcelerate, right? But just for small market cap biotechs. Just an idea I have. Whoever was watching, if you put something like that together, you're going to have a good business.
I completely agree, and I would advocate for that for your viewership as well. Gosh, I've got a lot of philosophical discussion. I've been in this business 38 years, and I spent 17 years in big pharma. So look, you're absolutely right, Dan. The business development folks and the big CROs, they send you the A team, and by the time the study starts, you got the D team. And
exactly.
And many times you're bless you, salud, Monica. Many times you're out there training the CROs, trying to get them to do what you need them to do. And we don't have the bandwidth. The small companies, we might have 3 or 4 people in our clinical development department. We certainly don't have the bandwidth. The reason you go with this big CRO is because they have the bandwidth. So it does slow us down. The nice thing for small companies is, there you go. I just got an email from LD Micro, one of the conferences I just were talking to.
There you go.
We can make decisions very quickly. We're not large pharma that have to have 6 or 7 meetings before we can tell with procurement and all these people. As a CEO, everything stops with me. So if my guys pitch me a good CRO opportunity, we'll talk to them. But if we need CROs that have experience that can get. We are only as good as our CRO, unfortunately.
That's right.
Yeah. I was going to ask, as we wrap up, unless Chris or Monica have more questions. James, thank you for doing this. Always a good sport. Any last, until our next meeting, any last words for the social investors, the retail? I know you guys are trying to attract institutional investors. By the way, how's that going? Are you getting like some interest, some feedback?
Yeah, that's actually going really well. We're excited. I think, hopefully something happens soon. Our share price is just getting beat up, and the institutional investors don't really care. They're in it for the long haul. They really are more concerned with the assets. We've got a couple of institutional investors that we are very close with right now that are involved in very strong diligence now for the 3rd or 4th week. They're now looking for the so-called home run, meaning these are particular crossover funds who don't really want to look at these oncology companies where if you hit it, you got 100x. They want something that is solid, that works, and that has a good chance of making it to the market, something a little safer. And niclosamide been around for 50 years. So they know it works. They know we've shown them our data. Adrulipase works as well. We just have to fix the formulation. So they're more interested in something like a 4x or 6x or an 8x, something that's more of a sure thing, which is music to my ears, because unfortunately in the market, especially in the retail market, some of your social investors, as you call them, they're all looking for the big home run. And
they don't wait. They don't have patience.
Yeah, they don't. And we're really excited about what we have. I think we're going to do real well. We just have to survive Bernie Sanders and all these other naysayers.
Yeah, we can do a whole podcast on that. I like what you said about the 4 to 6x returns rather than 20x, because I think that's a good strategy as we eventually have to come face to face with inflation, right? So institutional investors going to start looking for safer things. So, less risky. And if you guys have something like that to offer them, in your portfolio. I think you guys are well positioned for that kind of environment.
Yeah, we don't have a lot of risk in our company, believe it or not. I'm pretty happy about that. We have drugs that actually work, but we're not sexy. And that's the issue. In the past couple of years in the bull market, everyone's looking for something sexy. But now you're right. The investors sexy is finished. They're looking for safety. They're looking for something where they can place their money with some good growth.
You're bringing
Yeah.
sexy back.
Yeah, GI sounds sexy for me. A lot of people with a lot of conditions, especially those conditions like Crohn's disease and pancreatitis. I mean,
All right. So
sounds
last
sexy.
thing, we'll end with the social investors. You inpatient people. Although some here online are patient. You know, there's a few that are like kind of relaxing everyone else. I'm reading the comments. Any last words for them until we do this again, James?
Yeah, just be patient. Keep looking at our stock. We're up. We've. What I would say is, those of you who are on Ameriprise or you purchase your stock through E-Trade or something, put a very high limit on your share price so that they can't use the people who short our stock can't use your stock to short our stock. Our stock gets borrowed from your accounts and you're not even aware of it, because no one asks for your permission. They just borrow your stock for 2 or 3 days and short our stock and then put it back into the system. You never knew it happened. So if you're purchasing our stock, put a very high limit that you're not going to sell it for $20 or more, and that would help us, and that would help you in the long run as well.
You hear that, Chris? Stop putting those orders in. Chris loves doing that.
Hey, what am I getting the blame for here?
No, we're not blaming you. You just use that strategy all the time. James is saying stop, but not for the small caps.
Right.
Well, they're killing companies. I'm not blaming Chris because I don't know Chris, but the people who are short selling on micro caps are destroying value.
They are, yeah.
And for a very short term gain, and it's a shame. It actually should be illegal, quite frankly.
It's so atrocious. It's actually funny because it's so crazy how we got here. I mean, that's never been the point of short selling. Now that's become a whole industry of its own, where there's zero value add. It's just pure arbitrage and bullying, basically bullying, right? I don't know how you guys deal with this.
It's hard. That's my biggest problem. Like, for instance, we've put out nothing but positive news in the last 2 or 3 months, and my stock has been cut in half, which is unbelievable to me. Every time I put out good news, my share price goes down, which is, the shorters are getting in and just, and I would say our cash position is very good. People think maybe that's why our stock is being shorted. They think we need to go out and raise capital, which we don't. We have an ATM, which I'm able to tap into on a daily basis, and we've been able to raise capital that way. It's the cheapest way of raising capital for me. So, we've got money. That's not the issue. So I'm not sure why people are shorting a company that has nothing but good news.
What's the defense for that? Like, what are you and your team talking about besides doing more shows like people like us? But like, what's the defense against this?
There isn't any. The only defense we have is we do a lot of investment relations. We try to get people to buy the stock. We just keep putting out good news, hoping that we can catch the shorts and have them, have to sell or get out of their position and do it all over again. I mean, it's at Bio, I can tell you, it's something that we're fighting with. We've got NASDAQ and New York Stock Exchange that have filed amicus briefs with us to go to the SEC and ask them to put some caps on this to stop destroying companies. But the SEC is being lobbied by the hedge funds who do most of this, and it's kind of a losing battle.
Wow.
You might need to hire somebody to create a meme. I think that's how GameStop fought back.
AMC and GameStop. Yeah, I mean, and they didn't even pay for that. It just happened naturally.
I know, it just happened.
For biotechs and stuff, because it's not like it's a household name. That's
it hurts your investors. I mean, at the end of the day, we get hurt, but it's also the little guy that gets hurt, because They don't know what's going on. They can't compete against a hedge fund. I mean, they're, as Monica said, she likes the indications. You've got a lot of people that are out there investing in companies because they like what the company's doing. They like the
For
indications,
the science.
the science. They hope they can get help for their own families. And then, the hedge funds come along, they see a lot of volume and they say, okay, we have this algorithm and we can create money for ourselves by trading in this algorithm, and it hurts the stock and it hurts the little person. So
Yeah. Well, we'll try our best. I mean, we'll have you on. I would really like to have you on Latinos in clinical research. Monica, maybe set that up with James.
Yes,
Javier,
yes,
Javier for those ones.
yes.
And we'll set those series up. We would love to have you on, James.
love it, love it. Well, thanks again, Dan. It's always an entertaining discussion with you. So I appreciate
Likewise, we look forward to the next ones and to hear more announcements from you guys. Follow your company, and we'll definitely looking forward to having you on Latinos in clinical research too. So thank you guys very much, and have a good day, everybody. Bye bye.
it. Bye bye now.